and welcome to MalMakes. Today we're going to be doing a painting based on Pokémon Heart Gold. This is the full version. If you're interested in the time-lapse, you can click on the card here. Otherwise, let's get started. Early in 2019, I had done a painting of National Park from Pokémon Heart Gold Soul Silver, and it was the sunset time of day and it was super vibrant and there's a lot of cool texture because I did the entire thing with a palette knife. And it was a lot of fun to paint and it turned out really cool, and especially if you ever see it in person, the texture of it is really unique to anything else I've ever done. At the time, I had looked through different location art for the game, and the other one that really stuck out to me was Viridian Forest, because it has this really great atmosphere for this moonlit forest scene. And I thought that would be fun to paint, so I added it to my list, and now I'm coming back to that list. I looked at the location art in-game, and I needed to make some changes because of the ratio, because I wanted to change the composition a little bit to make it a little bit nicer for the ratio of my canvas. Now, in-game, the sky gets a little bit lighter towards the top, and being a nighttime scene, that's obviously an indication that there's probably a moon off-screen. So I just extended that up there and pushed all of the image down into this bottom right corner so I could do that and put the moon there, and I think it brings a lot to the composition of the entire area. Now, because of that, I have to add in some more on some of the other areas, so I have the entire left side of the tree filled in, and I really like how it looks compositionally with all of this extra stuff added in. And just like always, I'm going to be painting my sky first, so I need to rough in all of this with pencil or chalk pastel on my canvas, and then I can start to fill in that sky. I had to do this guy twice until I was happy with it. The first time there were some edges that weren't blending the way I wanted. They were a little too harsh and not a smooth gradient. So I tried to fix them up, and some areas had dried and some were still wet, and it started to become a big mess on the canvas. I stepped aside, took some black gesso, and filled in all of the darkest parts of the painting. And then the sky was dry and I could try it a second time. And that time it worked out much better. Now that that's drying, I'm filling in the edges of the forest here because we have this clearing where you can see the edge of the woods and you can see into them where there's some moonlight coming through the gaps in the trees. So I've drawn in all of the trees down here using two different chalk pastels, a light gray and a dark gray. So in the negative space between all of these trees, I'm going to use some of my sky colors to have the moonlight feel that's coming through those trees. Then I'll fill in the light gray trees with a darker gray color, and then the darkest trees here that have the dark gray chalk pastel with an even darker gray. So I have the depth of all of these trees here on the edge of the clearing. Once that's done, I'm going to be able to work on a ton of stuff like their foliage up here and the main tree over here, but I want to make sure I get that done so that I can keep working on other parts of the painting. I had painted the sky and the background down here behind these trees, and I thought they were both okay. I wasn't super happy with them, and I started to add in the stars in the sky, and I thought I did too many, and I ruined it. I tried to cover them up, and I ruined it. So I had to repaint the outside of the sky. The center part here was still fine, and it looks a lot better, so I'm glad I did that. But because all of that looks a lot better now, the part down here definitely had to change. It was way too cartoonish. I added in some mist, darkened up the outside parts, and now I have to go back in and add the faraway trees. I'm going to do them a little bit different just because I don't want to have solid colors and solid lines again. So I will have them fade in a little bit and almost like they're not completely there in some areas. That will help a lot. And then I can redo the ones that sit in front here because I obviously painted over them to darken up and lighten up that background. I also have to fill back in the moon because I had lightened that area up and it put a light blue wash over the top of the white moon. When I do that, I'm also going to add in some earth shine, and that's when the light bounces off the sun and hits the moon and lights up the dark side of the moon just a little bit. Not completely, but just enough to know it's a sphere there in the sky. I think that will help that area a lot. And then once I do those things, finish down here and get that all fixed up and looking a lot better and finishing the moon, I can go back to working on the other stuff I haven't done anything with yet. I'm so glad I redid the sky and the trees down here. They look a ton better. And once they're dry, I can start to work on all of the foliage. I drew in the big tree, trying to define the borders of it so I know where it's going to go, and I also did the same for these trees over here. Now, they're kind of like a giant puffball of leaves on top of each of the tree trunks. So I have to think about that as I'm painting. The very tops here are going to get light from the moon, so they're going to be kind of this light blue-green color. And then as I work my way around the tree towards the bottom, I'm going to go into this blue-green, this very blue-green, into blue, violet, and then I'll take some of the Mars black and bone black up here for the darkest parts of the leaves down along the bottom. Once I have all that done, I can start to work on this big tree, but I need to get that done first because I want to make sure the lightest colors of the big tree are going to overlap these faraway trees back here. And if I do these first, then I won't have those nice marks here for the edge of those leaves. Now I'm going to be using a big foliage brush for this and just tapping the lightest parts in first, and then I'll go to the next darkest color and start tapping those in, and do that all the way until the darkest colors here along the base. It took a little bit to get the grove of the trees the right brightness. I had to go with a blue-green because that's more of a moonlight night color family instead of like yellow-green and warm colors. So I did that. It's mostly blue down here, and it fades to a lighter, slightly more saturated green towards the top, with just a little bit of the most bright areas being lit up with a light green. Because it's backlit by the moon, just like this cloud is here, we're just going to get a little bit of that brightest color on the edges. It looked a bit strange for a while, and then I started to add in the layers of branches and where you would see trees in front of the other, and that really helped bring that part together. Fading it into the deeper Prussian blue, bone black towards the base also helped because it gave it a little bit of roundness as a spherical tree. The last tree I have to do is obviously the big focus one here. It's going to get a lot of the same colors, but my greens are going to get a bit more saturated and a bit lighter, and not quite so much on the edge like these ones are. This is the main focus, so I want to bring a lot of attention to it, so it's going to get a lot more saturation and lighter greens, and it's going to be lit more directly by the moon instead of backlit like these ones. To fill all of these in, I'm using a lot of bristle brushes where the bristles are not quite sharp, and I can just really tap in all of the different colors and layers. And I'm starting with the darker ones down here, and I'll work my way to the lighter ones up here. So there's been a handful of things I've done on the painting. The first thing was adding in some sparkles back here, like fireflies or something. There's a hint of it there in game, and I thought it was really pretty, so I added just a little bit of that into this part down here. I also painted in the grass. Now the grass is backlit from right about here, just like the grove of trees is and that cloud, where the very tips of it directly under the moon are going to have the lightest colors to them. Because I have the grass and the moon, they get lit up from the backside. And then as I get outwards, I go more and more into blue colors, into black, so it gets super dark underneath the shadow of the tree, and as it gets towards this side of the canvas as well. I also worked on the big tree. I used some dark blue-gray colors to add in detail on top of the carbon black, just tapping it in like I've done all of the other trees. And as I got into the lighter areas, I took some of the green from these trees on my palette and started to make it a bit more green. But because this tree is sitting in the clearing, I need it to be nice and bright and standing there in the moonlight. So I got lighter and lighter colors on this tree and not these ones for that reason. Now the very last thing I have to do is paint Pikachu. I want him to be hidden in there so there's only a hint that he's even there on that tree. So I've drawn him a little bit different from game. I really only I want him to be hidden, like you don't even notice him at first if you see the painting. So I'm going to fill it in with some more of the same browns from the tree trunk, and then just go a little bit into yellow so there's a hint that he's there. And we're done! We have Viridian Forest from Pokémon Heart Gold. If you're interested in this piece, you could buy a poster or a phone case, or bid on this original canvas. There's links down below. Also, consider supporting me on Patreon. You can find out more at supportmal.com. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of MalMakes, and I'll see you again here for another video game painting.